Hello, my fellow introverts. My name is Thea and I'm a life coach for introverts, and this is my first Q&A video called Ask an Introvert. Yay! If you'd like to ask me a question, feel free to just type it in the comments and I will try to get to it in my next video. So our first question is by the fellow introvert, Stella. Stella asks, how do you substitute the value of business relationships gained through conferences and networking when you're an introvert and you don't feel comfortable talking to people face-to-face or over the phone? Okay, really good news, Stella. This is actually the best time to be an introverted entrepreneur. So we actually have access to, a lot of people online. The whole point of, conferences and networking events and things like that is to make connections in person, but we can totally make connections online as well. I actually have a good friend that I met on Twitter, and the connection happened because I had seen she also lives in LA and owned an introverted related business, and so I messaged her on Twitter and said, hey, I'm also in LA. I also do an introverted related business. Hi. And that's basically all you have to do to start making connections online. And online connections can be just as strong as in-person connections. So don't worry about the fact that, you do better online than in person. It's not a weakness or anything like that. It could totally be a strength, but, it kind of starts with realizing that it's okay to be introverted and it's okay to make connections online. Now, introverts tend to like to sit back and observe before they start making connections. Same goes with the internet. So you're totally, it's okay for you to just look in a Facebook group first and start getting the hang of it and start seeing, who all the people are. But just as in networking events, it's a good idea to make the first move a lot, right? It's a good idea to make the first hello. And so I do encourage you to do that while you're making connections online, is just to start actually making connections, start commenting on people's Facebook groups, group posts, and, wherever else you are comfortable online, and just start saying hello. And that's how connections are made. Afnan asks, what can you recommend to a person who is unable to convey his ideas or opinions during a meeting, but is able to share them after the activity is over? However, at that point, it doesn't really serve the purpose. Okay, so there's kind of two ways to think about this, and it depends on what your manager is like. So if your manager likes working with people's strengths, then he might be able to just understand that it's okay for you to not speak up in meetings very much. He might be, really excited that you can listen to everybody deeply and then take everybody's opinion into one solid concept, an hour later after the meeting. So it really depends on what your manager is like and whether she likes using people's strengths or not. You can also do certain things to compensate for not being able to talk off the cuff very well. Like I'm trying to do that right now. And part of something that you can do is just, it starts with being okay with yourself. And it starts with giving yourself a lot of room to make mistakes, right? I'm saying a lot. I normally say a lot when I'm speaking. So, I could focus on that and think about, oh my God, it's so awful that I'm saying a lot, or I could just start talking. Now, extroverts, they talk while they think. And they normally, if they end up saying something that doesn't make sense, that's okay. And that's partially, something that we have to get used to too if we want to start talking in meetings. So I would say just start talking and listen to your gut, actually. Okay, so this is another point I wanted to make, was that it's good to listen to your emotions. So if someone's saying something and you think, oh, what that person's saying is incorrect, listen to your emotions. Listen to your gut. There might be like a little spark of, oh, something isn't right here. And it's okay for you to not have your full thought realized before you start speaking out. So just raise your hand, interject whatever, and then give yourself a little space to actually think and for your thoughts to form. So you can start saying something like, what John said right now is really interesting. And you can just have a filler phrase like that. A filler phrase you often use just to fill up the air while you're forming your thoughts. And this will take some time to get used to. And it's okay if you mess up a few times, because experts often don't care if they do. And we often think that people are worried about us and that they're concentrating on us and that they're paying attention to us a lot more than is actually fact. Lauren asks, as an introvert, my social anxiety often manifests in my physical body as tightness and floppy nerves in my core or stomach. Sometimes I get nauseous. Do you find this happens to you if you face social anxiety? Hi Lauren. Yes, I do face social anxiety. Next question. Okay, no, never mind. You probably want a deeper answer than just yes. There are tons of people who experience social anxiety, and there are levels of social anxiety. So there's, a little bit of social anxiety, and then there's social anxiety that's, diagnosable and that actually interferes with you having a good life. I don't have that kind of social anxiety. I generally just do things anyway, even if I'm anxious. So if this happens to you and you're feeling anxious about something, I would do a few exercises. So like taking deep breaths. A lot of time when we're anxious, we start to do some shallow breathing, and that can make us even more anxious. So just do a few deep breaths. And then another thing you can do is ground yourself by literally feeling yourself being grounded onto this big, wide, stable earth, right? So put your feet on the floor, flat against the floor, and then just feel yourself being grounded and feel yourself being part of this big, solid earth. And so I find that that's often, very comforting. So another thing I often do when I'm going to do something that often triggers my social anxiety is I keep busy. So like the other day, I scheduled and ran a meetup group for introverts, and we went to a cafe and played board games, and actually 21 people showed up and it was fun. But what I did during the day before that happened was I just kept busy, right? So I did blog posts, answered email, I just did not think about it. I didn't give myself time to think about it. I was just busy all day. Now when you do this, it's important that you don't keep yourself busy by doing something that stresses you out. So if calling your mother, say, stresses you out, don't do that. Just keep yourself busy with neutral projects. And then just get out there. So yeah, I hope this helps you. There's plenty of people out there who have social anxiety. Julie asks, advice for functioning in a highly extrovert-centered work environment. My condolences, Julie, that's not a fun place to be. I would say the most important thing for an introvert in that situation, I don't know, much about you, so I'm not saying specifically for you. This might not apply to you. But for introverts who are in an extroverted, focused environment, I would say the most important thing is to remember that there's nothing wrong with being an introvert, right? Because if we go home and we're feeling sad about ourselves and we're feeling bad about ourselves and we're like, oh, I wish I was an extrovert, that stuff is draining, right? And you need the time home to really recharge instead of focusing on negative things. So I would just really, really understand that there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. It's just that your work environment isn't perhaps suited for you. Just like there's plenty of work environments that aren't actually suited for an extrovert. Like programming. A lot of computer programmers are introverts, and there's a reason for that, because you're mainly working with your code, not with other people. So yeah, first it starts with being really, really clear that there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. And then my second and third tips are actually kind of related to each other. My second tip is to take your breaks, right? And then my third tip is to not isolate yourself from your extroverted colleagues. So taking breaks, take your 15-minute breaks or whatever your work allows away from your computer by yourself. Go to the bathroom and stay in there for 15 minutes if you need to. I'm not going to judge. Lunch breaks, take those by yourself too. If you're invited to lunch by your extroverted colleagues, it's good to not, totally isolate yourself by making sure that they know that you want to maintain a good relationship. So they might say, hey, Julie, do you want to go out right now? And you can say, oh, I've noticed that when I eat lunch with other people that my afternoon, I get kind of tired. So I'll pass, but do you want to go for lunch, next Saturday or something like that? You might want to, write this down so that you can have a better response than what I just said. But I would really suggest that you still have a good relationship with your colleagues. And that means keeping the door open for connections and not just saying no thank you, but inviting them to be not close to you, but inviting them to making a connection with you on your own terms. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you to those who sent me some questions. I love to hear more questions, so just type them up in the comments. Just a few other thank yous here. Thank you to the column Ask a Mexican, because that actually gave me the name Ask an Introvert. Thank you to Michaela Chung, who actually ended up doing a video series, Ask an Introvert, before I could get to it. And then she stopped, and then she gave me permission to use the term Ask an Introvert. So thank you to her. If you like Q&A videos and you're an entrepreneur, I would actually suggest that you go check out Gary Vaynerchuk's Q&A videos called Ask Gary Vee, and Marie Forleo's videos, Marie TV. And that's it.